Bring in Bill O'Reilly, host of the No Spin News on BillO'Reilly.com. Bill, there is something about violence to political motives or messaging motives, if you want to call it, being normalized in America. There's also something else about this, though. Seeing that man walk in with that gun to an office building in New York, I think gives a lot of folks just this incredible feeling of unease and unsafeness.
Well, I can't speculate about any of that. I can tell you that in New York City, there's a great fear on the part of many people, and that is because of the rise of social disorder. We've seen it in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, other towns. But in New York City, the largest and most powerful city in the country, people are very uneasy. And the reason they are is because the system has collapsed, the justice system. And the police do a tremendous job because violent crime is actually falling in New York City. And that's because of the skilled police officers, not because of the courts, which kick out people, as everybody knows, with no bail who are violent. And a lot of the crimes are not reported. So I don't know how accurate this crime stats are. But I live 8 miles outside of the Queen border. And when I have to go into New York City, everybody knows me. And I know the city as well as anyone. And they engage me in conversation. I always ask, hey, how do you feel about, going to work? How do you feel about going on a subway, the buses? How about your kids? Are you worried about them? 100% are very, very uneasy about what is happening in the city. And it's not hard to figure out why it's happening.
No, I hear you.
You've got people in charge.
What's the difference, though? And I think it's important as we watch this moment crystallize on national television. We are all focused on it because it happened in Midtown Manhattan. Over the July 4th holiday, 4 killed, 14 hurt in Chicago mass shooting. There was a similar event in Philadelphia. These kinds of mass shootings happen almost every weekend in major American cities, but not in Midtown Manhattan. They're in predominantly African-American or minority communities. They're often at night, and nobody seems to care. What is it about this that strikes that nerve?
Well, this is a targeted killing, could be political, but I'm not going to speculate because I don't know. In the Philadelphia and Chicago, those are neighborhood killings. Those neighborhoods are controlled by drug gangs, and they wipe out the other drug gangs. And that's what you see, this horrendous level of violence fighting over the narcotics trade. But again, the commonality is that the people in charge don't really care. They're not trying to solve the problem. Mayor Adams in New York City, Governor Hochul, governor of the state, they don't try to solve the problem. They don't. And the legislature is insanely left-wing. So once you have a culture of violence, which you do have in New York City, Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, you have a culture of violence.
Can we compare the two things, though? And I think you're right, undoubtedly, that Chicago and Philadelphia and New York and the lawlessness and what you see in the subways and people pushing people into the subways and on and on and on, those are all connected. And it's not always just the gangbangers who get killed in those shootings. But this is different, right? This is a guy who, by multiple reports, traveled from Las Vegas and went to this one building and went to the 33rd floor. These are different events. I think what you may be getting at, and I think it's a good point, is we got a statement just in the past couple of minutes from Zohran Mamdani, who, as you know, is running for mayor of New York, is now the Democratic nominee in New York, who wants to defund the police. He said, "I'm heartbroken to learn the horrific shooting in Midtown, and I'm holding the victims, their families, and the NYPD officer," he said in critical condition means the one who died, "in my thoughts. Grateful for all of our first responders on the ground." Does this now violence that we're seeing in New York suddenly change the conversation about electing a guy who wants less police and wants to remove so many of the barriers to violence and says that, well, prisons just don't really do much good?
New York City will collapse if Mamdani is elected mayor. It'll totally collapse. There'll be an exodus of affluent people out. The tax base will crash. The police will, look, they're demoralized now. I don't know how they do it, by the way. I really don't know. My grandfather was in by NYPD. Police that go in, they know that they make one false move, they're going to be charged. I was earlier this summer in Tokyo and Beijing, both cities bigger than New York City. You don't have this. And the reason you don't have it is because the authorities in both of those cities will punish criminals to an extent that's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, though, I mean, do we really want to go live in a situation where we have the same rules as Beijing? I mean, I'm not sure.
No, but
how we make
Tokyo
that...
is a free city. You don't want to live in a police state like Beijing, but Tokyo is a free city. But the message is the same. You get out of line, even if you shoplift, you're going to get punished. That message has disappeared in liberal New York City. This is always going to happen, by the way. You're never going to be able to prevent it. You'll hear tomorrow the wailing about how did he get the gun and this and that. And these people they're not honest people. Everybody knows that if you ban guns tomorrow, the black market, the criminals would have 200 million guns to sell, and they would sell them. So, I mean, that's just a fallacious bunch of garbage. But what I'm trying to get across to all Americans is this. You cannot run your country like this. You have to punish criminality, particularly violence, and you have to punish it harshly. And that goes for narcotics trafficking as well.
But isn't there a difference?
That's not what we're doing here.
I agree with you. But isn't there a difference between the violence you're talking about, of the narcotics violence and gang violence and the homeless population that's been allowed to take over, versus what appears to be, in this case, a targeted killing? Certainly the Mamdani killing was a targeted killing. And there's now this culture, and you see it on the left and on the right as well, that violence is somehow noble or acceptable in the pursuit of political ends. It's Clausewitz who said war is politics by other means.
And that's the key.
Go ahead.
And that's the key. You just hit it. You hit the key. There is a violent culture that is growing in urban areas in the United States. And the culture is growing because there's no punishment. Sure, this is much different than a street gang crime. Of course it is. But younger people are now accepting violence. They're accepting it. Well, if so-and-so deserves it, then blow his brains out. That's what they're doing. You can't allow that message to permeate, and we have. That's what's going on.
Yeah. You know the NYPD well. You spent a lot of time in New York City. I can't help but think about the juxtaposition of what they were going through, running to the sound of gunfire, knowing one of their colleagues was fallen. They didn't know they were dead at that point. And now we move towards burying another officer in New York. And I don't think it's something that the NYPD ever gets used to.
Nobody gets used to it. But the level of police confrontations is down big. And I believe, are the fatalities among the police department. But the New York City Police Department is probably the toughest, best trained department in the country. And it has to be because of the terror nexus. And I'm not surprised that the officers went in to try to save lives. That's what they do, you know? And
no, I'm not surprised. I just think it's worthy of praise in the moment to just acknowledge.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But here's how bad it. Here's how bad. Leland, listen to me. Here's how bad it is in the court system. So a year and a half ago, we had 2 police officers beat up by gangsters in the Bronx on a subway platform. Was captured on videotape. The 2 guys arrested for beating up the officers, sending them to the hospital, have had their cases continued 12 times.
So what changes?
They're out on the street. They're out on the street tonight.
So what changes it?
Despite that insult, despite that disrespect from the Bronx judges, because the judges are the ones that continue the cases. They still run into the fire. That is extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And I guess my question to you, though, is I think you've identified the problem of elected officials that have gone very soft on crime. We'll use that term broadly, and that violence has now been by many glorified and by many, many more deemed sort of acceptable or something that they'll go on. We can go on a long tangent of why people say that, but
yeah, they justify it.
Right, and they don't really care about the people who end up getting hurt most, which is the poorest among us. So I guess the question to you, though, is how does this change? You've got an election coming up. All of the things that you've talked about in New York that have been going on, and the travesties of justice, the dangers of the communities that have been let out, have been going on. And the permissive escalation of violence with this guy is going on. And yet, Zohran Mamdani, an avowed socialist who wants to defund the police, who gets very close to being pro-Hamas, another avowed terrorist organization, won't talk about that killing Jews is bad, says, well, I don't like to condemn any kind of language, and yet he wins the Democratic nomination for mayor. That's not just about the elected politicians. Don't we have to say what is happening in the culture that is electing people who continually do this? What is it?
The people of San Francisco voted to destroy their city. Now they're trying to come back, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. And in New York, there is a culture of people who hate America, hate New York City, hate their own lives.
Hey, Bill, I just want to interrupt you for 1 second with some breaking news right now. The Associated Press identifying the gunman as Shane Tamura, 27 years old, reportedly of Las Vegas, of Nevada, according to the Associated Press. Shane Tamura. What that knows, that's the picture we have of him. So somehow he got from Las Vegas to New York, which I think tells us, to your point, even more so, Bill, that this was targeted in one way or another.
Yeah, he had a beef with somebody, and he knew he was going to come out dead, and he didn't care. And again, you're never going to prevent that kind of a thing, ever, no matter what. It's just going to, but you can prevent. You said, how can you change? When Giuliani got elected, he changed it.
Yep.
Bloomberg continued the Giuliani policies, and the city was safe. And then de Blasio showed up, and that was a disaster. And now it's gone downhill from there. The only mayoral candidate who will take on this insanity is Curtis Sliwa, the Republican. The 3 Democrats will not. And it's a 4-to-1 Democratic city voter registration. So New York's in for some pretty harsh pain, no matter who wins, except if Sliwa does, then it will start to go up. And that's the state of the city.
That's the state of the city. I want to get you, though, on the state of the country, where targeted violence...
Well, that's a different question.
Right.
That's a different question.
So answer me that.
The state of the country is this. In the rural areas and in most smaller cities, you don't have this chaotic anarchy as far as crime. In states like Texas and Florida, big states, all right, throughout the South, they do enforce the law. They punish violent criminals harshly, okay? There is a separation. The only solution to violent crime is punishment. That is it. You know, I wrote a book called Confronting Evil. It'll be out in September. All of these evil mass murderers got away with it because the people in their countries looked away. Just like the people in Los Angeles and San Francisco, New York City, on and on. They looked away. You will not stop these monsters unless you punish them.
I think you've identified the problem and the solution. Whether America's ready for it or not, we wait and see. Bill O'Reilly, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.